Make sure to subscribe to our channel, join our Discord, and also follow us on Instagram so you always have the support that you need to really enhance your account and get yourself to the next level. Also, if you stick around until the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can save a lot of money when you make in-game purchases in The Legend of Mushroom by getting some amazing cashbacks each time you purchase anything. Hello everyone and welcome to another video of the Sky channel. So this video is about the Martial Sage, so the warrior class. It is one of the tankiest classes out there and is actually pretty effective in PvP. But before we get started, you might be wondering, I remember seeing a video about this guy, he was an archer and he's usually been an archer. What does he know about the swordsman class? And well, I have to give credit to the source of a lot of this knowledge. This player, who's the strongest player in my server range, is the one who actually shared most of this knowledge with me, and his main is a Martial Sage. Not to mention, he actually has two accounts. Both of them are the strongest in our server, and both of them happen to be Martial Sage because he loves this class so much. So a big thank you to him for sharing this, and hopefully all of you find this useful information that you can use to make a very powerful warrior. Okay, let's start by trying to understand the Martial Sage class. Firstly, we're going to talk about the active skill. So you deal a bunch of damage and reduce counter damage res of targets within the range by 40%. Okay, so if you didn't have any idea about this warrior class so far, you can already see that counter damage is probably a very good source of damage for this class, just by looking at the active class skill. And then it says each counter-strike within 8 seconds of initiating this skill deals extra damage equal to 1% of the current HP of the target. Okay, so first we're reducing the counter damage res, but we're also saying that every time you counter them, you deal damage equal to 1% of their current HP. So damage based on their current HP, which is always nice as well. Now, of course, if it was maximum HP, it would be even nicer because current HP, well, if it's 100%, you're doing 1% of their total HP. But if it's only 50%, then 1% of that would be actually 0.5% of their maximum HP. And as their HP goes lower, the damage decreases as well. Now let's go to the passive skills. The first one, counter plus 30% and counter multiplier plus 30%. Okay, we already knew counter was something important to this class. Now you know even more. 30% counter chance and 30% counter multiplier, which is essentially the damage that you do per counter. Next one, defense plus 30%. And as I mentioned before, it's a very tanky class and you're going to see why. So additional defense, always helpful. Next one, damage res plus 15%. And what that means is that you take less damage because you are more resistant to damage. This builds towards its tankiness, and you're going to notice that damage res is actually a pretty important part of the build because it reduces the damage you take. The next one is actually pretty interesting. Restore 8% of your maximum HP every 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds, you're restoring 8% of your maximum health. Now for some classes, that might not mean much, right? If you're a crossbow, 8% of your maximum health is negligible. But you're going to see that we're going to build our Martial Sage such that it's going to have a ton of HP. So 8% of that is going to be huge. Finally, gain a shield every 10 seconds that absorbs 8% of your maximum HP for 5 seconds. So basically it gives you a shield every 10 seconds that is equal to 8% of your maximum health, and it lasts for 5 seconds. So other than the fact that counters are important, and of course you need to be a little bit of a survivor, having more damage res, having more defense, the other thing that you probably noticed is a lot of focus on maximum health, right? You're healing based on your maximum health. You're getting shields based on your maximum health. And you know what we're going to do? We are going to focus our build to maximize our health, to maximize our survivability, and to maximize shields, because shields work towards making you last much longer. So let's jump right towards the build. Now, before you guys get confused, I did switch to Plume Monarch between the start of the video and now. That's because I want to maintain my cross-server arena rank, which is currently fairly high, and my Plume Monarch is still stronger than my warrior build, which is a work in progress. So don't get confused, we're going to continue with the rest of the video, but if you see a gun instead of the sword, understand that's because I currently switched back to Plume Monarch. Okay, so what about our gear? Well, first off, counterstrikes are important for you. So making sure that you have a high counterstrike percentage is helpful. Because, well, your class does damage based on the current HP of the enemy every time you do counters, right? So that's one thing. As you can imagine, one of the most important ways of you doing damage is going to be counter. You have so much health, defense, and damage res. It's very hard for enemies to actually kill you. So what better way of doing damage than by having them kill themselves, right? Through counters. So counterstrike is, of course, very important. The other thing is crit rate, right? So when you're countering, you can actually crit on those counters, and that increases the amount of damage that you do when you're countering. This is one of the types of the builds. The other one that might even be better is essentially having Counterstrike and Regeneration. While crit increases the amount of damage you do, Regeneration allows you to heal yourself much faster. And the way you're building your build, it's going to focus a lot on healing, regeneration, shields, survivability. So having gear that has Counterstrike and Regeneration is actually very effective as well. And if you have the opportunity, try to have one for Counterstrike and crit rate and one for Counterstrike and Regeneration. I think maybe Counterstrike Regeneration is probably going to work better for you, but that's something that you're welcome to try. The only thing is that you don't do a lot of damage, so having a little bit of crit can be helpful as well. But I'd probably prioritize Counterstrike and Regeneration because we are going to build on that so much that any little amount of regeneration you can get is always helpful. Now let's go to the relics. The first one, Counterstrike plus 10%. I'm sure you understand why. You're a warrior, Counterstrike is important, so counter plus 10%. The second one, I probably stick with Thundercaller Kite. It deals a bunch of damage every time you use active skills, which is helpful. The third one, you're going to be using a Deer Pal, so having the magic box is helpful as it increases the Deer Pal's damage. When it comes to the books, I'd probably go with the one that gives you damage res because you're all about being a huge tank and damage res is important to you for that reason. This gives damage res of so many different types: basic attack, pal damage, counter strike, combo, skill damage of 5%. It is a must have. I think this is actually pretty helpful, and you'll notice that we actually focus a lot on damage res. This is giving a lot of damage res, so a really good book to focus on. The fifth one, I'd probably stick to this one because you're going to be using Easy Breezy and Take It Slow, and this increases the effect of those skills by 30%. So helpful. The sixth one, I'd go with the Spirit Necklace because it actually boosts basic attack damage during Blitz Assault, and we're going to be using Blitz Assault, so it is helpful. We're not going to be using a Clone Strike or stuff like that, so basically these relics are dependent on which skills you use. That's why I'm choosing the ones that I'm recommending. If you decide to use other skills, you're welcome to change the relics around. Finally, the Spores. And I think the damage res of 6.8% or 7% once you max it out is probably the most helpful for your class because, damage res is important for your class. A good time to go towards the skills because we were just talking about the relics. First one is Blitz Assault, and I think that makes the most sense for you to have because it gives you damage immunity, especially against mages, right? Mages are going to come in, they're going to start releasing their big skills. You want to be sure that you don't get hit too hard by the mages in the first few seconds. Blitz Assault can help with that. So make sure you do have the Blitz Assault, giving you that damage immunity for the first 3 seconds of the battle. Second one, Easy Breezy. Essentially, you deal some damage and then you reduce the attack of the enemy within range by 20%. Reducing the attack means that you survive longer. Next one is Disarm, and what that does is that it disarms the enemy for 3 seconds, and that's helpful because then you're restricting their abilities to deal damage. Nature's Renewal. Very important because you're all about healing and shields. So Nature's Renewal is going to give you 30% off your maximum HP every time you use the skill. And given that you're going to have a ton of health, 30% is no joke, so this is really nice and helpful to have. The last one, Take It Slow, and what it does is that it reduces the attack speed of your enemies by 40%. Reduction in attack speed means reduction in the number of attacks that they can deal to you, and hence the damage they can deal goes down as well. That's the skills. Let's move over to the pals. The first one, Hydra Sprite, active skill energy regeneration plus 25%, means that it enables you to use your skills more often. And of course, since your skills also include nature's renewal, that means you can heal more often. That by itself should make this a worthwhile pal. Next up, B-Duck. And if you look at the bottom, the deploy effect says extends all shield durations by 1.5 seconds. Now, we're gonna have a ton of shields. So this duck becomes extremely important because, well, the shields generally tend to expire after a certain amount of time. This enables it to last longer. With your huge health, it's less likely that the shield is going to run out because the enemy did so much damage to you. There's a good chance that the shields are going to expire because of the time constraint. This is helping with the time constraint, basically. Angel Deer, giving you damage res, and you're all about survivability, so damage res is very important. So let's make sure that we have the Angel Deer, because the more damage res you have, the less damage the enemy can do, the more you survive longer. Next up, the Panda. And this Panda is really important because it gives you HP regeneration of plus 40%. Now, this HP regeneration of plus 40% builds on your current regeneration, and that's why if you have gear that has regeneration in it, the Panda is actually going to enhance that regeneration even further. You're also going to get regeneration through other means, like through your back accessories and stuff. So the Panda enhances the overall regeneration that you have by 40%, which is very helpful because regeneration means healing, and healing is good for you. Last one, this puppy. And what it does is that it increases all shields effects by 20%, right? I already told you have a ton of health. The shields are going to be huge because they're going to be based on your maximum HP. And now you have this puppy that's going to make the shields 20% more effective. Okay, so just by looking at everything we've seen so far, you can probably see why you are extremely tanky. We're talking regeneration, which is healing you every second. We're talking shields coming through, and the shields are buffed up because of the duck and the puppy. And then you have nature's renewal, healing 30% of your health every time it activates. You're using a pal to make sure that nature's renewal actually comes in more often. You have a shield coming in from your class as well, which is also amazing. Your class is also giving you certain healing every few seconds, again, which is very cool. So already you can see that, you know what, this class is probably not going down that easily, right? And so far, we haven't even covered most of the things. So let's jump right to the next one. Class Awakening. Now again, don't be confused by the plume monarch that you're seeing in the middle. That has nothing to do with the video. Okay, highest focus is on HP. So this is fairly dependent on how many scrolls you have, but based on the scrolls that I had, I got my health one to level 75. That's giving me 120% global HP. Now you must be wondering, how did I make this level 75 and how do you decide what level to have it based on how many scrolls you have? Well, here's the formula that I can give to you that you can use or you can adjust based on how you prefer. Get the attack one to level 5 and get this counter damage one to level 5 as well. Then every 2 levels of global HP, you can give 1 level to your defense and 1 level to your crit res, right? So use that proportion. What I was doing is that I got this to level 10 and got these 2 to level 5, and then I just kept feeding this 10 and this 5 each time, which is why it's not an exact because the HP one was the last one that was upgraded, but you get the idea. Now, why is it that I'm focusing primarily on health and then secondary focus being defense and crit res? Well, you already know that having a high health is very important. We just covered it. All of the shields are going to be based on the amount of health you have, and your healing is based on the amount of health you have. Nature's renewal heals you 30% of your maximum health, and then regeneration heals you based on your maximum health as well. So everything has a little bit of a link towards your maximum health. Okay, so what about defense? Defense allows you to live longer, right? If you have a lot of health and you have a lot of defense, it means that that health is going to last longer because enemies are going to be able to do less damage to you because defense reduces their damage. Crit res is also very important, right? The enemies can deal a lot of damage using crits. Crit res reduces their crits and hence you live much longer, right? As a plume monarch, one of the best ways to do damage is by doing crits, right? I, as a plume monarch, focus heavily on my crit damage. I make sure it's really high because it actually goes really far. Now, mages do most of the damage through skill crits. And my assumption is this crit res actually includes skill crit res as well. So that would be extremely helpful. But you know what? Even if it doesn't, this is going to be pretty helpful against archers as well. So that is our class awakenings. Now we're going to talk about the fruit bonuses. And as you can probably have guessed, my recommendation is to have everything in global health. Boost your global health, get a ton of health, and that's going to increase your healing. It's going to increase your survivability. It's going to increase your shield strength, and so many things are linked to your health. So you definitely want to max out your HP using the fruit bonuses. So I guess you guys aren't too surprised. So let's move on to the souls. So ignore what you're seeing on the screen. This is my Plume Monarch one. But here's what I want you to focus on if you are a Martial Sage. The top priority, and that should be no surprise, is definitely going to be your global HP. Now this pink soul is so cool that it doesn't only give you global HP, it also gives you HP regeneration bonus. 2-in-1 combo. So max this out. This is your top priority. You're getting global health and you're getting HP regeneration. Both of the things that you really need. So max this out. Get this to the highest level because it is your top priority. But don't use everything on this because you do have to focus a little bit on some other things as well. And what are those other things? Well, you have crit res, which I mentioned is very important. So try to make sure this is your second priority. Getting a high enough crit res so the enemies cannot do a ton of damage to you using crits. And the other second priority, which you can level evenly, would be your global defense. Because as I mentioned before, the higher your defense, the longer you can survive. A third priority, which would be lower than the others that I mentioned earlier, would be your global attack. Because, well, the higher your attack, the more damage you're going to end up doing to the enemies when you counter them. The rest, in my opinion, are not as important. So remember the order: global health and HP regen, top priority. Second priority would be the defense and crit res. Third priority is attack, and then the rest come after that. If that makes sense, let's jump over to the mounts. And of course, you want to make sure that you're always getting clockwinders to upgrade your mount to higher tiers. That pretty much goes for all classes, and that's a given, so I'm not going to focus too much on that, but a lot of stats come from this, so always do that. It's very important. The empowerment, again, this is kind of like standard for all classes. Whenever you get these gears, you want to try to upgrade these, and of course, you don't get to choose where it goes, so just upgrade this whenever you can. What's the most important here is the advanced mounts. And for your class Martial Sage, if you got the shuttle, you're in luck, because I want you to read the extra mount skill. Grants a shield equal to 10% off your maximum HP every 11 seconds after the battle starts, lasting for 8 seconds. Okay, just by reading that, you can probably understand why I'm telling you that this is a very good mount to have, because it's giving you a shield of 10% of your maximum HP every 11 seconds, and it's lasting for 8 seconds, so there's only 3 seconds in between where you're going to be without this shield, and 10% of your maximum HP is going to be really high because of all of your health that we just collected. It also gives you 6% damage res for the shield's duration, and it increases your final damage res by 3% and attack by 3% once the shield is lost, and it lasts until the end of battle and stacks up to 3 times. So not only is it giving you a really cool 10% of your maximum HP shield, it's giving you 6% damage res during the shield's duration, and then it gives you a final damage res of 3% and attack of 3% that sticks around with you until the end of battle, and it can stack 3 times. Shields and damage res, two things that you really love, and it's giving you both of them. Now, somebody mentioned that, let's have some free-to-play options as well. If you're free-to-play, then the Blue Ox would be the choice for you. You can get this for free, and it gives you a 10% damage res, which is also very helpful. Next, artifacts. And of course, you want to try to get the hammers to upgrade your artifacts as well, because a lot of your stats are coming from artifacts. But let's quickly jump to the Morph tab, and I want to share the best best artifact that you can have for this build, and that is the Countdown Blast. And once I start reading about it, you're probably going to understand why it's the best choice. Every 11 seconds after the battle starts, gain a shield equal to 16% of your maximum HP. Again, a shield, right? We're talking all about healing and shields, and there you go. You can get shields from pretty much everywhere, and it's all based on your maximum HP, and you have a ton of HP, right? So 11 seconds, 16% of your maximum HP is a shield, which is amazing. And you know what? It ignores PvP reduction and shield breaks. And I really like the second part of that a lot because, there are certain classes that can break shields immediately. Well, not this shield. This one's going to stick around. That being said, it's at the cost of 10% of your current HP, and it only lasts for 3 seconds. Now you may be like, that's pretty costly, but you know what? You're going to have so many shields that you're hopefully going to have 100% HP most of the time, right? Because all of the time you're going to have one shield or the other that's going to be taking the damage for you, and you got to give Nature's Renewal and your Regeneration some work to do. So it doesn't matter. You're going to lose 10% of your HP. It's going to come back very soon. Now let's go to the next part of it. During the 3 seconds of that shield, you can't really use basic attacks, combos, counters, or active skills. But once the shield disappears, you do a ton of damage to the enemy. 1200% of your basic attack damage, which can be crit. 1200% of your combo damage can be crit. 1200% of your counter damage can be crit. 4000% of your skill damage as well. And it increases your pal's next basic attack damage by 200%. So you can't do much for 3 seconds, but then you do a ton of damage, making this quite helpful. Now, what if you're a free to play? Well, if you're a free to play, then you pretty much have no choice other than the Warlord's Hammer, because there are no other free to play artifacts that are currently available. And well, you might as well just use this in that case. Okay, what about artifact enchantments? What are certain things that we can pick up from here that can be helpful to us? Well, my focus is probably going to be on damage res. So in secondary attributes, you can get a bunch of damage res attributes. For example, you can see in this one, there's skill damage res. In this one, there's counter damage res. Here, there's combo damage res. So you can grab a bunch of these different damage res that can be particularly helpful because damage res, as I mentioned before, helps you live longer. Now, artifact number 4, you can pick up the one that gives you counter damage because, well, it is your key way of doing damage to the enemies, so you might as well increase that damage a little bit here as well. And when it comes to the 6th artifact, crit res bonus is probably the best choice for you because of the importance of crit in a lot of the different builds that you're going to be facing. Making crits as less effective as possible is something that you really need to focus on. Alright, back accessories is up next. So what is important about the back accessories? Well, first of all, you should definitely increase your base HP from this because, well, health is very important. So make sure that this one is actually prioritized the most, but try to keep everything else going well as well, as every 10 levels gives you a big jump in your stats. But of course, try to maximize the HP a little bit more than the others. Now, when you talk about the special wings, you won't be too surprised when I say that the fan is probably the best choice for you to pick. And the reason is quite simple. Every 11 seconds, you get a shield equal to 10% of your maximum HP. Now, this fan is probably made for mages more than it is for warriors. But the fact that it's giving you a 10% shield every 11 seconds automatically makes it the choice for you because, well, shields are so important to you. Now, after that, you can see it actually increases energy regeneration by 50% during the shield's duration, which is amazing for mages, but also amazing for you because that means that you can release your skills more often. And of course, nature's regeneration gets released more often as well, so you heal more often. Then you get some skill damage, which is not that helpful for you. How about the talents? And again, the talents have to do with how many of these red feather coins that you've collected, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a basic understanding of where things are important so you can decide how you want to go about it. Well, first of all, there's the 0.3% healing that's up at the top here in the Fury, which is a nice thing to get because healing is important for you. The other thing is that the top tree is always very helpful because it has a bunch of these damage res, like counter damage res, skill damage res, combo damage res, basic attack res as well. You'll notice that I've prioritized the skill damage res and combo damage res, and I've actually made them level 20 across the different pages where I went for the top tree. That's because I think that you're going to have a tougher time fighting mages and probably crossbows because they're so common, as opposed to fighting other warriors. Other warriors are probably going to have a ton of health as well. So it's not like their counter is going to do a lot of damage to you, and it's not like your counter is going to do a ton of damage to them. If you're both really big tanks, it's going to be a pretty long battle. But crossbows, very common, and they can do a lot of combo damage. Good to have some resistance to them, and of course mages as well. If you go to the left tree, you'll notice that I also got level 20 on the Regeneration one, which gives 0.2% healing. Should be no surprise because healing is important to us. I also got the healing amount plus 0.1 and healing rate plus 10% all the way up to level 20. And then from the right tree, I actually got this one, restores 1% of your maximum HP every 5 counterattacks. You're going to do a lot of counterattacks, so this is a nice way to get a bunch of healing in as well. And you'll notice that anywhere there's a base HP, I've maxed it out to level 20, right? Here, going to the next page, HP is always maxed out, and you can see the damage res pretty similar to the way I showed you in the previous page. In the sorcery one, I actually went for the right tree, of course, base HP maxed out. But why did I go to the right tree? Because it has crit res of 200% and I really wanted that. So good thing to focus on. I also tried to get this. I ran out of feather coins, but restoring 0.6% of your maximum HP every time you use skills, good as well. Then the tamed beast, you can see again, top tree, and it's showing the same damage res as I recommended earlier. Now, if you are facing different classes, you can switch things around based on which classes you are most worried by. It is completely free. You can reset talents anytime. So that's a little bit of how I think you should focus your back accessory talents. And we are coming pretty close to the end of the video. So now let's talk about avians. And the best avian in my opinion, and you can see why, is the bee. And the reason is because the skill deals damage equal to 2.5% of maximum HP every 5 seconds after the battle starts. Of course, you're not a very big hitter. So anytime you see anything that's dealing damage based on maximum HP, you want it because your attack isn't super high. You're a tank, right? So take the maximum HP damage stuff. This is quite helpful. So you definitely want to have the bee. It is the best avian that you can have. But also look at this, punch counter. Counterstrikes have a 50% chance to deal damage equal to 0.5% of current HP. You want to try to have a bee that has punch counter. Again, you're going to do a lot of counter strikes because you're going to have a high counter chance. So every other counter, you're doing 0.5% of current HP as damage. Of course, you're going to take that. So definitely try to get this bee with the punch counter as your top choice of avians. And finally, the star array. And you want to try to have this particular star hero as your main hero. The reason is because every 15 seconds after the battle starts, you're dealing area effect damage equal to 5% of maximum HP. Again, as I mentioned before, anytime you see deal damage equal to X% of maximum HP, you want that. You aren't a very big damage dealer by yourself, so you want to try to get these sort of maximum HP damages or even current HP damages to really assist you to deal more damage to the enemies. So this should be your main star hero. For the secondary star hero, I think that this one is pretty good. Releasing the main active skill grants you a shield that absorbs 5.6% of your maximum HP for 5 seconds. I think it should make a lot of sense why I said this is a good choice. It's giving you a shield equal to 5.6% of your maximum HP, and you love shields, so you definitely want this. The other one, you can choose this dog. Releasing the main active skill reduces the enemy's attack by 8% for 5 seconds. Reducing the attack means that you live longer, which is always helpful. And since I still have you here, I want you to know that you can save a lot of money in The Legend of Mushroom and take your account to the next level. The steps are very simple. Just follow the video that I'm linking to the description of this video, or you can click that button that's going to appear at the top part of the screen that'll take you to that video. We're talking 10 to 35% cash back each time you make a purchase in the game. Imagine how far that can take you, or basically save you a lot of money in the long run. If you have any questions, join our Discord and I can guide you through the process personally. A lot of big spenders are taking advantage of this and they are ever grateful, and I hope you join in as well, because not only are you going to save a lot of of money, you'll actually be helping our channel as well. Okay, so that's how I think you can build a very strong martial sage that doesn't go down very easily. A lot of healing, a lot of health, a lot of regeneration, a lot of damage resistance, allowing you to live much longer and making you a force to be reckoned with. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please like it, please share it with your friends, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.